This is how you can fix your social anxiety. And how do I know this works? Well, I've had some pretty extreme social anxiety my entire life. Talking or meeting new individuals was so terrifying. If I couldn't find something in a grocery store, I'd walk to a completely different store just to avoid the conversation that I'd have to have with an employee. It sucks. And it gets 10 times worse when talking to a stranger over the phone. Hell, I couldn't even book my own dentist appointment up until last year because I was so scared about having to talk to someone over the phone, even though their entire job is to be kind and help me book the appointment. It's like that overwhelming feeling you get when your heart feels like it's falling into an endless pit whilst also feeling like it's about to jump out of your chest at the same time. That chilling feeling when it feels like the room has suddenly gotten ice cold. And it's that moment when your mind starts to think, oh, I can't do this, or what if it goes wrong, or are they going to laugh at me, or are they going to silently judge me, or maybe it's they're going to leave a bad review somehow. Like, you just want to hang up, leave any conversation, and not have to do it fully knowing that at some point in the future, you're going to have to do it again. Even when it came to talking in front of my friends, if I tried to give a suggestion on a place we should go, or try and explain a story, the sudden silence whilst realizing everyone was focused on me ate away at me. Hell, even when it came to scam calls, where I knew no matter what I said over the phone that they couldn't hurt me and that they were in the wrong, my heart would still pound out of my chest. I'd have this loss of breath where I found it so hard to even finish a sentence. I lost all ability to sound confident in what I was saying, and even after the phone call finished, I had to take a moment to recover, and then I'd spend the next 30 minutes thinking about what ifs. I've had this for 20 years of my life. It fucking sucks. But there is a silver lining to all of this. It's fixable. I've spent the last year of my life trying different methods, different techniques to try and fix this, because I am done living like this. I've even gone as far as getting a job that specifically puts me in a position where I have to force myself to be comfortable with human interaction with strangers and problem solving, which is something that I wouldn't have done before. Now though, like today, I'm able to freely talk to strangers, crack jokes, make small talk, be confident in the way I speak, and most importantly, I can book my dentist appointment. Mild jokes aside, I'm actually able to do cold calling now, where I call hundreds of strangers over the phone and I can actually speak well, unlike what I was previously like. Now that you have a little bit of my backstory, here's how you can fix it for yourself. First things first, in order to solve something, you have to understand it. I tried doing that with my friend, and what we discovered is that we actually process failure differently. My process goes something like this. My intentions turn into actions, which turn into incompetence, which turns into perceived judgment and therefore reinforces the insecurity around my lack of confidence. However, if you take my friend, for instance, he processes things like this. His intentions turn into actions, which turn into failure, but then he'll find out where things went wrong and will account for that in the future. And so, although that makes sense on paper, it doesn't really work for me. In fact, here's my personal feedback loop with my distinct stages. First, we have intentions, then actions, then competence, failure, perceived judgment, and reinforcement of insecurity around the lack of competence. Now, if I were to put this into video game terms, it would look something like this. Imagine you're in a competitive game. Your entire team has died, and now it's down to you to win a 1v1 to win the entire game. But as you're peeking around the corner, you die and lose the game. For me, my intentions were to kill the other player and win the game. My incompetence would be that my aim was off. My failure would be that I died and, well, I lost the match. And my perceived judgment turns into me imagining my dead teammates watching my POV and then sighing and thinking that I'm trash and silently judging me. And my reinforcement of my insecurity is that I'm convinced that I'm just bad at the game and I'll never be able to get better. For my friend, however, it would be completely different. In fact, it would go something like this. So his intentions were to kill the other player and win the game, just like mine. His incompetence would be that his aim was off, same as me. His failure would be that he died and lost the match. But now, instead of where my perceived judgment turns into me thinking that I'm just meant to be bad at the game, he sees this as data, so he knows what to do next time. And then he adjusts so that he doesn't make the same mistake again. So he's constantly improving, whereas I believe I'm just destined to not be able to get better. Another example could be cold calling, where I reach out to a business owner who has never heard of my company to sell them something. Now, to anyone with social anxiety, this sounds like a daunting task. And for myself, before fixing my social anxiety, it would go something like this. So for me, my intentions would be to sell a product to an individual that I genuinely think would benefit them. My incompetence would be that I'm not fully familiar with how to enunciate the words in my script, and therefore my failure would be that the prospect hung up.
then my perceived judgment turns into me thinking about what that person thinks of me and how they hate me and how they'll make fun of me to their friends, and then that reinforces my insecurity because I'll be convinced that I'm a terrible salesman and I'll never be able to be good at it. Now, moving past those examples, fixing your social anxiety sounds hard, and, well, that's because it is, but the process is actually extremely simple. Let's go back to the feedback loop we had before. First it was incompetence, then failure, then perceived judgment, and then finally reinforcement of insecurity around the lack of competence. If you truly want to understand your social anxiety, you first have to be self-aware of how you think, just like how I described myself before. Then you want to apply that logic to this table: incompetence, failure, perceived judgment, reinforcement of insecurity around the lack of competence. Now, in order to fix your social anxiety, you just have to remove one of these 4 stages. Seriously, that's it. For me, it was the incompetence part. In cold calling, I practiced my script enough times to where I got pretty good, which enabled me to be able to be confident in how I spoke because I was less worried about what I had to say next and how to say it. For my friend, it was the perceived judgment. He literally said to me that he didn't care what his teammates thought because they were already dead, so whatever they thought was pretty much invalid. And well, if you're like me, what you'll find out is when you start to fix those painful points of incompetence that expose your social anxiety, you'll start to be more confident and your social anxiety will shrink. Don't get me wrong, the process is simple, but it can be easy for some and daunting for others. But the more you do it, the better it gets. And by watching this video, you're already becoming self-aware of your way of thinking, and now you know how to fix it.